Welcome back to another episode of Poncha Talk, our podcast about remote work, digital nomad lifestyle, and entrepreneurship to inspire you to live a flexible life the way you want it. My name is Ellie. I'm host of Poncha Talk, and I am excited to have Franzi as a guest in today's show. She will tell us all about her remote work career and life on Madeira here, and especially how she started to build a little dance community here on Madeira, which is really cool. So, welcome to the show. Thanks for taking the time today to share your story with us. Maybe you'll just start introducing yourself a little bit. Tell us what you do for a living and how you ended up on Madeira now.
Sure. Thank you. My name is Franzi. I am a video editor, videographer, dancer, dance teacher. So that's kind of all the different stuff that I do. So not just one thing. So I work as a freelancer. And yeah, I started freelancing 2022 and I started back in Germany. And then I always dreamed about traveling and being able not to be stuck somewhere. I think that's just one of my big fears, to be stuck in a hamster wheel in a way. And even when you're freelancing, I think it can happen because you fall into the trap of doing certain jobs. And so, yeah, the beginning of this year, actually, I just decided to travel the whole year. And my first stop was Madeira. And I was only here for 2 months, but I fell in love with it right away. And so I came back at the end of September.
I'm glad to have you back on Madeira. Since you started traveling this year, have you been able to continue your freelance work in the same way that you did before, or has it?
It has definitely changed because I did so many different things back in Germany. So I was a dance teacher, videographer, and video editor. So the only thing I could do remotely was video editing. So it's only a third of my income, which definitely made a difference. So I would not have been able to do this year of traveling without my savings. So I was living off savings a lot, but really wanted to do it to see what happens and also to see what might develop from the places where I go to. And ultimately, I did want to find something like a home or a base, which, might not be for the entire year, but just something where I can say I can still work on site. But I always have that flexibility to just take some time off and just work from anywhere. So it has definitely changed. So I did not really do a lot of self-promoting when it came to video editing because I wasn't sure how much I wanted to do it, whether I wanted to do completely remotely. But I think that's part of the freedom, right? Part of the freedom is, yes, you can work from anywhere, but you can also take opportunities as they come. And I think that's the bigger part of it. And I think that's what made me come back to Madeira. And that's what has been mainly happening on Madeira, was that I was like, wow, this community, like, it just makes things happen. It's just the right people, the right synergies, the right kind of initiatives that just grow on themselves. And I think that's why I came back, and that's kind of where I kind of want to continue riding that wave at the moment.
And you are riding the wave because you just started, was it last month or 2 months ago? You started with the dance classes here, right? In the community, and you're doing it weekly. And as I have seen, they're booked out now fully every week. So congratulations on that. Has that already been in your mind when you decided to come back to Madeira, or is that something that just popped up once you came back with the dancing here?
I did one dance workshop when I was here the first time. It was one workshop, or like 3 hours, 3 different dance styles on one Saturday. I only had like a handful of people coming because people didn't know me, and it was hard to advertise it. So I did that. But when I was doing it, I was like, man, I'm supposed to do this. Like, it was just one of those moments where I was like, this is what I want to share. It brings me so much joy. So when I decided to come back to Madeira, I hadn't been teaching for a while because I've been traveling the world, and I was taking classes here and there, but to be able to teach, you really need a community because you need people who respond to it. You need a safe space, really. You need to know that it's working, that people will respond to it, and that there's a demand. So when I came back, the first thing, even before I came back, I texted Louis from Madeira friends. And I was like, Louis, I'm back. I want to teach. And this time I want to do it weekly. And like, I was just all in because I think I had not been creative like this in a while. Because usually back home, like back in Germany, I would teach 2 classes at least a week, 1 choreography per month. So there was constant creation, constant choreographies being made by me. And I hadn't done that in like 6 months. So I was like, man, I was really craving to create something for myself. And so, yeah, when I came back, I got in touch with Louis and he helped me again secure the studio and advertise it. And they've done an amazing job. So I'm so grateful to them because they gave me access to the community, which I knew would be full of people that were the right people to offer it to, because they were the ones who are so open to try something new, to really grow, but also to support. I think the support is absolutely exceptional. It's people want you to succeed. I think that's the most amazing thing. And I honestly, I don't always get that back home. I think there's not as much encouragement. There's not as much just openness and curiosity. And so that has always been a constant motivator for me because I just felt safe and I felt like people will respond because they have responded in the past. And I just feel like a tribe that I just feel really comfortable in. And I feel like I can be myself and I'm being appreciated for what I can offer. So
I love that you said that people here want you to succeed, because that's also like how I feel, and that's what I'm looking for in community as well when I travel. Because I do agree, like I feel at home in Germany. Sometimes it's not like that. People there are really fast to judge when you're trying something new, or maybe they're a little jealous, or it's just a different vibe here in the community. Same when I started like the podcast. People are so encouraging about it, and you jumped at the opportunity to be a guest, and everyone wants to support it, and it's just a really good space to start something when you want to. So, but it is like you said, you have to take like that first initial step, and you did that when you reached out to Louis and you're like, hey, I want to do this. And that takes also a little bit of courage, I think, to take that initial step. How was the timeline when you decided, okay, I want to come back to Madeira, I want to start a community? Like, can you walk us through that a little bit?
Well, I think having been here the first 2 months, and that was an accident, by the way. So it's always a kind of a funny story. I'm just going to tell it quickly. So when I decided I wanted to go travel, I was like, the stop that I really wanted to go to was New York in the US. But I wanted to start traveling in January, and I was like, I'm not crazy. I'm not going to go to New York in January. I'm going to freeze to death. So I was like, hey, where can I go where there's not winter in January and February, but has direct flights to New York? That was literally the reason I came to Madeira. Like, it's crazy. I didn't know anything about the island. I did not do any research. I didn't know anyone. It just popped up as one of the islands that had direct flights. Because even from the Canaries, you always have to go to the mainland. It's like, it's really stupid, but like Madeira has direct flights to New York. And so I came here basically by accident, and I just stumbled into this amazing community in this amazing place. I was like, how did that happen? And so that was always like, leaving was really hard. Like, it was hard, but at the same time I was excited to go to New York, and then New York was just such a slap in the face. After Madeira, New York was just different energy. Slightly different energy. I'm glad I did it. I think it toughened me up a little bit. But I think this whole gap that I had of going to the US, and then I went to Canada, and then I went to London, stayed in London for two months, just really feeling those differences in what's the frequency of energy. That sounds really strange, but every place has a kind of a certain frequency of energy, a certain people, what people radiate, how people interact with one another. And so I think this gap that I had was really important to me, because if I had stayed, I think I would not have appreciated it as much in a way. I feel like I would have always second guessed if I'm just settling for something safe, although this has been amazing. And so I'm so glad I did this. And then it was so interesting. I was in Toronto at the end of July. No, yeah, I think it was the middle of July. I was in Toronto, and I was going to meet my siblings in the US, because when I said I was going to go travel, they already booked their flights to come visit me in the US. But I was like, guys, I left the US, I went to Canada. But I came back, we did the road trip, and I was in Toronto, and all of a sudden I had this kind of epiphany. I was like, what am I still doing here? Like, I was just like, this is not where I belong. This is not where I want to be. Although, like, all these experiences had their value for sure. I just knew in my gut that's not where I want to be. And then so I thought, when people asked me, "Oh, where would you want to settle if you settled somewhere?" And I was like, well, honestly, like, London has always been my favorite city. And the other one would be Madeira at this point. You know, after having traveled North America, I was like, it's in the back of my mind, and it just doesn't go anywhere because I didn't find anything that compares to this experience, to the people, and just like the city has the perfect size. You can see so much on the island if you have a car. So I feel like I would really be able to find a home here. So I think that was kind of the combination where I was like, and then all of a sudden, I was like, I was meant to go to Mexico. I had a flight booked to Mexico from the US. And I was like, I don't want to go to Mexico right now. I want to go where it feels like home. And so I went to London for 2 months, which was amazing. I still love the city, and I really want to spend my summers there if possible, if I can afford it. But then I was like, man, winters in Madeira are the best, you know? You have the amazing. I mean, come on, it's what, the 3rd of December, and we're sitting here in tops, and the sun's blazing, and we have the ocean. It's just nothing compares to that. There's something so healing and so inspiring about that. And so that's kind of what happened. So it definitely was a draw towards a home-like feeling, while also knowing it's a place where I can grow so much.
So now you've built your little home base here for now, at least. I know when I say a home base, I'm also talking like a couple months or so. This is like the long-term commitment. I mean, by having those classes now here that you teach in person on Madeira, you are kind of at least committing to like a month or two in advance for classes, right? And you already said you will come back next year to continue teaching here. How do you plan, like, how do you see yourself growing here? How do you just plan to continue the same way? Or do you have any further inspiration?
There's definitely changes, because these 2 months that I've been teaching right now have been kind of like a pilot phase, like just testing out, what do people respond to? Do people respond? Um, and also to see how it works for me. Like, how do I feel about this process, and this approach of especially teaching a new choreography in both styles every week. And so I realized that what I really want is people who commit, and people not commit as in like, feeling stressed about it, but like commit in a sense of like they want to grow as a group, because dancing together is just so much better than dancing alone. And you learn so much more when you're together. You can encourage each other. So I really want to build a community where people commit to come to my classes like at least 4 weeks in a row. So how I will change it is that there's not going to be a new choreography every week, but I will probably teach one choreography over the course of a month. So we can go more into the technique. We can go deeper into how we want to express that choreography, which I think is just so, so valuable. Now, the downside of that, obviously, is that people who just want to try it out once in a while might be left behind in a way that if they join in week 4, we've already done 3 weeks of choreography, and it will be really hard for them. But it's at least they will still get an idea of what I'm about and what kind of style I have and how I teach. I think because I have I feel like I have a solid base of people who already said they're going to come back, they want to continue doing this. I'd rather build on that than keeping it open forever and everyone. It is still open for everyone, but there's just a different expectation towards it now. And so I'm going to come back for 3 months, and to this point, it is only going to be 3 months. I mean, I'm going back for family events. I'm definitely going back to Germany in mid-April, but I used to always try and plan everything. The fact is you cannot. So I think for me, the biggest thing is right now, just do what feels right and then decide on the next step then. And I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm saying 3 months, and if I realize, wow, this could grow, I could have my own place. I mean, that would be a dream. But again, it tethers me, right? So if I had my own studio, that's kind of the commitment. Oh my God. But that's the thing. I'm a very fluid person. So I really adapt to any sorts of circumstances, and I try to learn new things all the time. And so I don't want to say I don't have routines, but I like to know that I have the possibility to always do something completely different. And so I think it's an exploration. So the 3 months that I'm coming back next year it's all going to be about how do I feel about this? What opportunities arise? You never know. Someone might come up to me and, I don't know, want me to do a show, or like you don't know, right? And so at this point, I can't make a decision. I'm just gonna go with what I think feels right at the moment. And especially, I think, just accept the support that people offer to me, because that's the biggest thing. Like when I started my dance classes, people just really supported me, and not just by coming to my classes, but like saying, hey, let's get together and think about business strategy. And I was like, no one has ever offered me this. This is crazy, because I'm not a I'm like a creative, right? So for me, like getting down and talking about numbers and that kind of stuff and strategizing is not my thing. But like people really, like I said, they want you to succeed and they want to be part of that. And I think that's why I'm not worried. I think whatever grows out of this is going to be wonderful. So I'm really excited.
That's good, not to be worried and just trust the process. I always find it so interesting. Everyone that I talk to, they just say that the community here on Madeira is just something so special, and it's the right place, and everybody keeps coming back, just like you did. And I find it really hard to pinpoint, though, like what exactly it is in the community that creates that. Do you have anything from your side what really makes this community stand out here? Why you decided to choose this to further build your dance lessons?
That's a great question. I tried to pinpoint it before. I think it's a combination of, and this might sound paradox, but it's live and let live and doing things together. Like there's this awesome combination of, if you want to start something, like if you have an idea, there is always going to be someone who knows exactly how to help you. I don't know, there's this mass effect because this community is so tightly knit together. And I mean, like we have WhatsApp groups with all these events, and so whatever you're into, I feel like it's growing and growing more and more. You will find a group of people. So there's a lot of togetherness, and at the same time, there's absolutely no judgment of what you do. So I always have that example. I feel like I could come here and be like, oh, by the way, I'm a clown. People would be like, awesome, cool. Can I book you for my next event? Like, it's just so, I think that's it. People don't think in boxes here. And I think that's what I experience a lot in Germany. It's like, you do this or you do this. But there's no one sees a connection or a synergy between areas. That here there are synergies between everything. So DJs with dancers, with musicians, with business people, tech people. Like there is just so much overlap just because the people are so open-minded. And so I think that's the wonderful thing. It's live and let live, but also just an attention to what can we create together. And that's so special, and I haven't experienced that anywhere else. And also because it's not such a big place, It is not a big city like New York and London. And so there's not as much anonymity. It feels like a family almost, right? But also it feels like no one wants to just be in their comfort zone. Like everyone wants to grow and learn something new and just, build something together. And I think that combination is like having a big family that just wants to learn, like go to school together, and that's amazing. And I think that's what makes it pretty special. I will say one thing, which is why I would only spend a part of the year here, is that the growth comes from the people, right? So it has a lot of fertile ground for whatever you want to start. There is not a lot of resources that have already mastered certain things. Sometimes, especially in dance, it's really hard to say, I want to take a master class in this specific style, because there's just no resource for that. Right? Different when you're in London. So that's why my vision is to be here in winter and teach, and then in summer, boost up my own skills, go to a big place like London, really go to the master classes, really challenge myself, learn new techniques, learn new moves, like just become a better dancer, and then bringing that knowledge back here. And I think that's what a lot of people do. Like people who do like a half thing, they say like, sometimes I need a place that just has all these resources, that has all these things that make me grow in a very specific field because they've just mastered it. You know, like, I mean, you have the best dancers in the big cities, right? So it makes sense to learn from them. But then coming here to do your thing and find the support and just grow, you know, it's like an incubator. I feel like, you know, Funchal, like Madeira is just like a huge incubator, and I think that's a very healthy. I think it could be a very healthy balance. Because for me to establish as a, like, I have to laugh because like for me to establish as a dancer and dance teacher in London, it's like there's no way, no way, because like they have the best dancers. There's absolutely no place. It's saturated. I think that's it. It's saturated, which gives you opportunity to learn, but it's not a place for you to establish yourself necessarily, unless you're the best of the best. It's nice to be in a place where what you can give is truly appreciated and seen as, you know, worth something and worth your time and money. So I think that's it for me.
Summarize it very well. And it is kind of like, it's such a nice little big family. Like we will have like 70 people at a workout, but it still like doesn't feel anonymous at all. You still like connect with everybody, you high five everybody. So it's like its own big family. It's very supportive of everyone. So it's definitely a good place to start something. But it's still like, I mean, community is one thing that supports that, of course, but still takes some work on your own, of course, as well, for you to start the dance lessons and to build them and reach out to people. Do you have any advice on that, like how you go after your ideas?
Well, it does take courage. It does take a certain level of confidence, I guess. And that doesn't happen overnight. And I'm not always super confident, but I think what I like to call is collect positive evidence. I was lucky enough to have been teaching for 5 years, so I know I can teach. I know I can choreograph. So I know that there's something, I have a skill. And I think it's experience that gives you that confidence in a way. But also like just strengthening yourself mentally. So I do have like my routines where I journal, and whenever I do have unpleasant feelings, you know, I really dive into them and I really try to not analyze, but like sense what's going on for me. Like I do a lot of work. I do a lot of like emotional healing work and all that. I think the key really is to understand yourself, like know yourself so well that you know how to navigate these moments of doubt and these moments of, oh, you know, like sometimes you just have these moments, and I think it's all about having a toolkit, and everyone has a different one, but for me it's definitely journaling. I do nonviolent communication, which helps me a lot dive into my feelings and needs and into like self-acceptance and all that, and I think that helps me a lot, you know, meditate, but also again talk to people who you trust, get that confidence boost, but then I think just it sounds so plain, but it's like just do it. Yeah. And I always ask myself, what's the worst thing that can happen? So for me, it was like I invested money to rent that place. So the worst thing that could happen was I lost that money. That's it. Literally. So I was like, it's just money, right? And if you can afford it, then why not? And I think it's always about like how high are the stakes, but how big might be the benefits. And I think that always gives me confidence, that question, what's the worst that can happen? And then most of the time it's not that bad. So I guess that's my approach to just doing stuff.
So I think you'll do great. From what I've seen with the dancing, growing every week, being booked out with waiting lists now, and you're already having plans for next year. I think it's going to be really great. Maybe one day I'll come to one of the classes too. I was actually thinking last week, you know, maybe I should try the contemporary because the choreography looks really nice. But then I saw it's fully booked, but I'll try again next time.
Now that I have regulars, obviously they kind of have dibs because they've been so loyal to me, and they're just like, oh, it's already in my calendar for the next 4 weeks. And I'm like, well, I can't tell them not to come, right? Just let new people in. So then like so people were like, well, you just need a bigger space. And I think that's probably one of the things that I'm going to look for next year. It's like just to have the option to expand, just to have the option to say, okay, I can let in 25 people. That would be amazing, right? But like you have to find that. Again, resources, right? You have to find that here in Funchal, and you have to be able to afford it. Just have the trust that money will come back. But again, it's when I did this, I did say it's an investment. And I think that's always how you have to see it.
Either a bigger space or a second night, or so it's also an option. Use the space that you have.
So many people said that. It was like, oh, just offer a second class. I was like, guys, you do know how exhausting this is. I'm over 30. Like, it's... And I realized this, like, I need balance. And I think that's the reason why it's so hard for me to stick to one thing. Because, like, sometimes I just don't feel like it. Sometimes I just don't have the energy. And I want it to be okay. And I don't want me to, like, work against my body. And so it's always kind of a balancing act of, like, I love this, but sometimes it's actually counterproductive to my brain and to my body to do this. Even though, like, in the moment it's always great, but, like, sometimes, like, I teach on Wednesdays, Thursdays, I cannot get out of bed. Like, it's everything hurts. And I'm just like, man, you're just not getting younger. A lot of people underestimate it. Like, a lot of people who come to my dance classes, they were like, oh, I didn't know this was so exhausting. I was like, yeah, dancing is a full-on sport. Like, it's so exhausting. And it uses muscles that sometimes you're like, I didn't know I had muscles there, right? But then also for me to keep that presence, you really have to stay with the people. You really have to be empathetic and read the room and holding that presence for 2 hours, then dancing full out, the routine for 10, 20 times. That's a lot. And so I think that people underestimate that. They're like, oh, just offer like a second class. And I'm like, 6, 7 years ago, I would have. But now I just need to be realistic, man. Like, you know. But again, I might be persuaded, because it's only 3 months. So I might be persuaded to just, like, you know, really work hard, just do it and just see. But maybe there's a possibility of having a bigger room. Yeah, we'll see. I'm really curious how everything's gonna turn out.
Yeah, do whatever feels right for you. If you don't have the pressure to have a second class, and whatever works best for your vision. Thank you very much for sharing your story. I always end my episodes with one last question, actually. Since we are on Madeira, what has been your favorite Madeira moment here? Anything particular that stands out?
Oh, wow, that's so hard. If I'm being completely honest, it would be one of my dance classes. I think the last dance class was just off the roof. It was just insane how people just didn't want to leave. Like, literally, we were there like 15, 20 minutes longer, and just the feedback that I got, just, it warmed, like, I'm gonna tear up. Like, it just warmed my heart so much to be received like this, you know. And again, it speaks for the community, and it speaks for this energy. I think I have to go with this one. Although looking at the ocean, I'm like, it's actually waking up in the morning and just seeing the ocean. Like, it's amazing. Yeah, I guess they tie in a way, because this is something small, but it's so impactful. Like, the ocean is so healing and, yeah, awe-inspiring.
But then coming back to teach more dance lesson has definitely been the right way. Again, thank you for taking the time being on the podcast, and thanks everyone for listening. If you like the episodes, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the podcast on any platform. We always appreciate any feedback. And if you want to be a guest, feel free to reach out. Thank you. We'll see you next time. Bye.